Most men don't realize they've built their lives on someone else's dream until it's too late to wake up. But what if you could read the letter your future self is desperate to send you right now? This is that letter. Younger me, let me ask you something. When was the last time you stopped, really stopped, and asked yourself why you want what you want? Not how to get it, not how to hustle harder, but why? I didn't ask that question for years. I was too busy proving, performing, achieving. I hit the goals, I earned the title, I became the man everyone expected. And somewhere in all of that, I lost the ability to hear my own voice. The applause was loud, but the silence when I was alone, louder. Then one night, I came home late again. My wife was asleep, the house was quiet, I poured a drink, sat at the kitchen table and stared at the wall. I had just been promoted, a big step, more money, more prestige, and all I felt was nothing. That's when the question hit me like a truck. Is this success or just momentum? That was the beginning of the unraveling, the good kind, the kind that makes space for truth. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." I used to think that was just a poetic idea until I realized it was a warning. Because here's what I've learned. You can build a beautiful cage and still die inside it. You can climb the ladder fast and discover it's leaning against the wrong wall, and you can spend your whole life winning a game that leaves you empty at the finish line. Socrates didn't just talk about reflection, he lived it. When the world told him to shut up, to stop asking questions, to stop disrupting the norm, he chose death instead. They gave him a chance to walk away. He said no, because a life lived in blind obedience was no life at all. That's not philosophy, that's clarity of dog. The truth is, most people don't stop to ask why until life stops them. A divorce, a health scare, a breakdown, a funeral. But you don't need a crisis to wake up, you just need honesty. Brutal, courageous honesty. There's a story about a high-performing banker, young, sharp, on the rise. Everyone thought he was made for it until he left. No scandal, no breakdown. He just walked away, started a social impact company. When asked why, he said, "I realized I was winning a game I didn't want to play." That man isn't a dropout, he's awake. So ask yourself, what game are you playing? Who wrote the rules? What's the cost of continuing? Look around your life right now. The job, the schedule, the goals. Did you choose them or did they happen to you? If you never stop to examine, you'll never realize how much of your life is lived by default. And that's the real danger, not failure, not rejection, but living a life that isn't yours so convincingly that no one, not even you, questions it. Start asking the hard questions, not to destroy your life, but to reclaim it. Sit down with yourself in silence. No phone, no performance, just the raw, awkward truth. Ask, what am I pretending not to know? What would I pursue if no one was watching? What would I let go of if I wasn't afraid? It's going to be uncomfortable. But that discomfort, that's the cost of freedom. And on the other side of it, there's clarity, there's peace, there's you, real, honest, awake. This isn't a call to quit your job or burn your world down. It's a call to wake up inside of it, to stop living by someone else's script and start editing your own. Because the most dangerous life isn't the one that fails. It's the one that succeeds in the wrong direction. And if you've been climbing hard, maybe it's time to pause, not to lose momentum, but to make sure the path is worth the price. And when you finally do, when you start asking and answering with honesty, that's the moment your real life begins. So here's the question. Are you living or just following instruction? Keep going, but make sure it's your way forward. Because in the next chapter, you're going to see what happens when you look all the way to the end and realize you've been writing the wrong story. Imagine this, your funeral, not the music, not the flowers, just the people standing up one by one to tell the story of your life. What do they say? He was reliable, always on time, got a lot done. Or do they say something else like, He made me feel seen. He was there when it mattered. He loved deeply. He lived fully. That's the line in the sand. That's the gap between achievement and legacy. Stephen Covey taught a principle that most people hear once and forget. But if you actually live by it, everything changes. Begin with the end in mind. Not in a morbid way, but in a clarifying way. Because when you start with the end, when you truly imagine what your life will be remembered for, you stop wasting time on what doesn't matter. I tried it. I sat down and wrote my own eulogy, not for a class, not for a speech, for me. And what I saw on that page shook me. The man I wanted to be remembered as was not the man I was becoming. The truth was undeniable. I was spending most of my life on things that wouldn't make the cut. The goals I was chasing didn't show up. The pressure I put on myself to look impressive didn't show up, but you know what did? My family, my integrity, my presence. That exercise became a mirror. It showed me the difference between a life that looks good and a life that feels good, between chasing applause and building something worth remembering. And then I read the story of Alfred Nobel. You know his name because of the Nobel Prize, but before that, he was the inventor of dynamite, a man who made a fortune from explosives. One morning, he opened the paper and read his own obituary, mistaken identity. But the headline said, "The merchant of death is dead." That's how the world saw him. He was alive. But he saw how his story would end if he didn't change, and so he did. He rewrote his will, donated his wealth, created a legacy that honored life instead of destroying it. That wasn't luck. That was clarity. He saw the end and used it to change the middle. You don't need to wait for a wake-up call like that. You don't need to lose something to remember what matters. All you need is a willingness to be honest about where your life is heading. I knew a man, let's call him David, senior partner at a law firm, had all the signs of success. But when his father died, something cracked. He went home after the funeral, looked at his kids and realized he barely knew them. He thought about what he wanted them to say about him someday. He provided, sure, but what else? He didn't like the answer. So he made a change, cut his hours, started coaching his daughter's soccer team, took piano lessons with his son, started a community legal clinic one night a week. None of it made him richer, but it made him right with himself. That's the power of beginning with the end in mind. It doesn't make life easier, it makes it real. And when you know what matters in the end, you can start living like it matters now. You can say no without guilt. You can shift course without shame. You can look in the mirror and recognize the man staring back, not just for what he's done, but for who he's becoming. The world will measure your life by metric. You have to decide if that's enough. Because legacy isn't built at the end, it's built in the middle. In the choices you make today, the boundaries you set, the love you give, the presence you bring. Start writing your eulogy now. Let it be bold, let it be honest, and then live it. Because the next chapter isn't about theory, it's about the people who waited too long to ask that question, the people who reached the end and realized they never truly lived. You still have time, but not forever. There's something sacred about the end of a life. Not in the way we talk about it at funerals, wrapped in flowers and formalities, but in the quiet, stripped-down reality of a person facing the full truth of how they lived. That's where Bronnie Ware did her work. Not in boardrooms or podcasts, but in bedrooms, in hospice care, sitting beside people who had days left to speak and no more need to impress anyone. And what they said over and over wasn't about money. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't even about failure. It was regret. The number one regret she heard again and again was this: I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That sentence feels like a whisper from the future, a warning from people who ran out of time. And when I first read it, I felt it in my chest. Because I was living a life that looked good. That made sense. That checked boxes. But deep down, I knew. I was borrowing someone else's definition of success. I was following a path I hadn't chosen. Not really. It had momentum, sure, but it didn't have me. Bronnie said that every man she cared for shared a different version of the same regret. I wish I hadn't worked so hard, not because they hated work, but because they poured everything into a system that gave them something to do, but nothing to live for. They missed moments, missed laughter, missed being there. They were always on their way somewhere else. I think about a man named John, an executive who built an empire and outlived his marriage. He had plaques, stock options, accolades, but in his final days, all he wanted was a do-over. Not to change the past, but to feel something real before it ended. He kept staring at a picture of his daughter. She was 5 in that photo. He said he remembered that day, not because he was there, but because he missed it. He was at a conference, closing a deal, so that photo haunted him, not because it captured something beautiful, but because it captured something he didn't witness. And then there was Margaret. She wanted to be a painter. Everyone told her it was a silly dream. So she took over the family accounting business, ran it for 40 years, paid the bills, checked the boxes. She had a good life by most standards, but she died with a room full of blank canvases. She said, "I thought I had more time." And maybe that's the most dangerous lie of all, that there will always be more time. Time to start, time to reconnect, time to be who you really are. But no one promises you tomorrow. And the life you're not living, that's the one you'll mourn when the clock runs out. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me. So I asked myself the hard question, if I keep living this way, what will I regret? It wasn't a dramatic moment. It was quiet. Just me in my car, parked outside the house, engine off. My kids were inside eating dinner. I'd missed it again. I told myself I was doing it for them. But deep down, I knew I was doing it for approval, for identity, for fear, because stopping felt like failure. Because choosing myself felt selfish, because I didn't know how to tell the world this isn't working anymore. But that night, I didn't go back to the office. I walked inside, I sat down, I was late, but I was there. And that was the first of 100 tiny decisions that started to reclaim my life. You don't need to disappear to change. You don't need to destroy everything. You just need to stop lying to yourself about what matters, about what you want, about what you're afraid of. Because regret is a thief that shows up late, but always takes more than it should. And right now, you still have a say. You still get to choose what the story becomes. You still have the ability to rewrite the ending, not by starting over, but by starting now. This isn't about guilt. It's about permission, to be honest, to change course, to stop living like time is infinite and start honoring it like the gift it is. Don't wait until your body is tired and your voice is frail to say what you've always known. This isn't it. Say it now, and then choose something better. Because the next chapter isn't about warning, it's about fuel. About the kind of strength that doesn't chase success at all, and yet somehow finds it. Keep listening. You're about to hear from a man who found meaning in the darkest place imaginable, and in doing so, lit the way for the rest of us. Imagine everything is stripped away. Your home, your freedom, your family, your name. Imagine waking up each day not knowing if you'll see the next, surrounded by suffering, cold, starving, forgotten by the world. That was Viktor Frankl's reality, a psychiatrist, a husband, a thinker, and then a prisoner in the Nazi death camps. He lost everything, but somehow he found something no one could take. Meaning. He watched men crumble, not just from hunger, but from hopelessness. They weren't dying from the conditions alone. They were dying from the inside out. Because once you lose your why, the how becomes unbearable. But the ones who survived, some of them were frail, sick, broken in body, but they had something else. They had a reason, a vision, a purpose, even if it was just the hope of seeing someone again, or finishing a manuscript, or bearing witness. They endured not because of their strength, but because they had something to live for. Frankl said something I'll never forget. Don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you are going to miss it. For success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue, and it only does so as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself. I remember reading that and feeling like someone had turned on the lights in a room I didn't know I was locked inside. Because I had been chasing success like it was a destination. Like if I hit the right number or crossed the right threshold, I'd finally feel whole. But I didn't. Every win felt like a sugar high, quick and empty. I wasn't burned out from working too hard. I was burned out from working without why. Then I heard about a man, Michael, mid-40s, successful sales executive. On the outside, he was crushing it. New car, big house, company awards. But inside, he was hollow. One Saturday, out of boredom more than anything else, he volunteered with a non-profit that builds homes. Hammer, nails, sweat. That day he helped put up a wall, just one wall, nothing glamorous, but when the family walked into their home and cried, something shifted in him. He didn't talk much about it, but he came back the next week, and the next. It didn't make sense to anyone. He wasn't chasing a title, he wasn't networking, he was just helping, giving, connecting. And somewhere in the middle of all that simplicity, he started to feel something he hadn't felt in years, but then purpose. Funny thing, his work numbers went up. He became more grounded, more authentic. People trusted him more. He wasn't performing anymore. He was present. The success he had once obsessed over started showing up on its own, not because he wanted it, but because he didn't need it. Frankl was right. Success isn't something you chase. It's something that follows you quietly, faithfully, when you stop chasing the applause and start chasing meaning. A meaning doesn't have to be epic, it just has to be true. For you, it could be mentoring, creating, serving, parenting, healing, building something that matters even if no one notices. The world sells you the myth of more money, more attention, more recognition, but your soul? It wants depth, meaning. And when you start living from that place, not chasing what you can prove, but investing in what you believe, you don't just feel better. You become whole. So stop asking what will get you ahead. Start asking what will make your life worth remembering. Because in the next chapter, we're going to hear from a man who risked everything by trusting that voice inside. A man who ignored the rules, listened to his gut, and changed the world, not by playing the game, but by refusing to play it at all. And his message might be the one you've been waiting your whole life to hear. He was 30 years old, on top of the world, a visionary, a founder, the face of one of the fastest growing companies in history. And then, just like that, he was fired from his own company, publicly, brutally. Most men would have disappeared, hid in shame, spent the rest of their lives chasing what they lost. Steve Jobs didn't. He said it was the best thing that ever happened to him, because it freed him from the burden of success. It stripped away expectations, and in that space he found something most people never do, himself. You know his story. Apple, Pixar, the iPhone, the keynote speeches. But the part that matters most isn't what he built, it's how he lived. He once said, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." It sounds simple, but when you say it with the weight of someone who's faced cancer, who's looked death in the eye, who knows how little time is left, it hits different. Jobs lived by intuition, by instinct. He dropped out of college, slept on floors, took calligraphy classes that made no sense at the time, but years later those same classes shaped the visual elegance of the Macintosh. The beauty of the product traced directly back to a choice that seemed irrelevant. That's the thing about intuition. It doesn't come with guarantees. It just whispers. And most of us are too loud to hear it. The world trains you to chase certainty, to follow the blueprint, to play it safe. But Jobs understood something else, something essential. The people who leave a mark are rarely the ones who followed the map. They're the ones who drew their own. There was a time in my life where I could feel that same pull. The quiet, knowing that the life I was living, the success I was chasing wasn't mine. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't me. I had everything I thought I wanted, but something inside felt off, unspoken, unaligned. I ignored it for years, because changing felt like failure, because walking away from something stable felt reckless, because I didn't know how to explain it to the people who had been clapping for me all along. But here's the truth no one tells you. If the applause is for a version of you that isn't real, it's not applause, it's noise. And it will never be enough. So I started asking myself Jobs' mirror test. Every morning, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? At first, the answer was no, just once in a while, then more often. Until one day, the answer was no, so clearly, so consistently that I couldn't ignore it anymore. And that was the moment everything changed. Not all at once, but from the inside out. I didn't quit my job in dramatic fashion. I didn't announce anything. I just started listening, paying attention, adjusting, choosing, slowly removing everything that felt performative and adding back what felt real. It wasn't easy. Some people didn't understand. Some people walked away, but the people who mattered stayed. And more importantly, I stayed. I stayed with myself, with my gut, with my values. That's what Jobs was really talking about. He wasn't romanticizing risk, he was honoring truth, your truth, the one only you can hear, the one you've probably been pushing down for years because it doesn't fit neatly into anyone else's expectations. But what if that truth is the key? What if everything you're looking for, peace, meaning, connection, what if it's all on the other side of finally choosing your own life? Jobs said, don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. He knew that conformity doesn't lead to greatness, that the safest path often leads nowhere, that being different isn't the risk, it's the requirement. There's a version of you waiting on the other side of letting go, a version that isn't louder or richer or more liked, but one that's free. And if you never meet him, it won't be because he didn't exist. It'll be because you chose the script over the truth. So ask yourself, really ask, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do? And if the answer is no, too often, too consistently, then it's not time to panic. It's time to pivot. You don't have to know where it leads. You just have to know what feels honest. Start there. Because the final chapter of this letter, the one you're about to hear, brings all of this full circle. It's not about chasing success. It's not about rejecting it. It's about defining it on your terms, in your voice, with your values. And it might be the most important decision you ever make. You weren't born with a definition of success. You were handed one. It came from your parents, your teachers, your culture, your peers. It came wrapped in expectations and soaked in approval. Get the grades, get the job, get the house, get the applause. And, if you're lucky, you'll wake up one day with all of it and realize it doesn't mean a thing. That's not failure, that's clarity. Because now you get to decide, right? You get to define success, not as the world sees it, but as you feel it, not as an image, but as an experience, not as something you chase, but something you live. And here's what I've learned. Success isn't a finish line, it's a direction. It's waking up with peace, going to sleep with pride, looking in the mirror and liking the man you see, being present with your family, creating something that outlives you, having the courage to stop pretending and start living. It's not what you own, it's what owns you, your values, your time, your truth. And it's different for every man. For some, it's building a business. For others, it's raising a family, but for some, it's art or travel or stillness or service. But here's the unifying thread. It's yours. You chose it. You created it. You sacrificed for it. And because of that, it means something. That's what this entire letter has been about. Socrates reminded you to examine your life. Covey taught you to begin with the end in mind. Bronnie brought the wisdom of the dying. Frankl gave you the strength to choose meaning. And Jobs gave you the permission to walk your own path. But none of that matters if you don't decide what success really means to you. So decide, write it down, make it real, and then live like your legacy depends on it, because it does. This isn't just a motivational moment, it's a reckoning. Because the truth is, the world will keep pulling you into a race that never ends. It will keep convincing you that more is better, faster is smarter, louder is stronger. But you know better now. You know that fulfillment isn't about scale, it's about depth. It's not about looking good, it's about feeling right. It's not about proving anything, it's about becoming someone you respect. So, if you've made it here, if you've stayed through this whole letter, you're already in motion. You're already asking better questions. You're already closer than you think. Now take the next step. Define your own success. And when you do, when you really do, you won't need anyone else's permission. You'll feel it quietly, powerfully, deep in your chest. And in that moment, you'll know you've stopped living by default. And you've started living by design. That's success. And it's yours now.